Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the Planning Commission meeting of February 26, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please still stay standing for the statement of values.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. May all be seated. Okay, Secretary Biagini, would you please call the roll?
Okay, Commissioner Salem? Here. Commissioner Ikezi? Present. Commissioner Kelly? Here. Chair Becker?
Here.
Commissioner Jane?
Here.
Commissioner Terakuru? Here. And I'm Commissioner Biagini here.
Great, thank you. All right. Declaration of Commission Procedures. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. 1, the chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. 2, any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. 3, applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals following a staff presentation of the item. Other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for the rebuttal of those comments. Number 4, no additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Number 5, special procedures, time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. And finally, number 6, appeal of commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days of tonight's meeting. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. A copy of the agenda packet is located at the table near the entrance of the council chambers right over there. Continuances and exceptions. This is the part of the meeting that allows for the applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item to be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. Are there any requests from the applicants, the public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none from the commission or the public or staff, we will move forward. This is the part of the consent calendar. The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on a consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on the regular agenda, make this request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items. And I believe it's not going off here, but I believe Commissioner Jane would like to pull an item.
Yeah, I'd like to pull items 1B and 1C, please.
Okay. Item 1B and 1C. Anybody else? Okay.
Motion to approve item 1A. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 1A by Commissioner Ikezi, seconded by Commissioner Terakuru. Go and cast your votes now. Should be popping up. You might have been booted out. Let's see. Joining in. Just one moment, folks. There we go. All right. And that passes unanimously. All right, we will move to item 1B, which is action on a use permit amendment for ABC license type 47 for Fleming's Prime Steakhouse located at 2762 Augustine Drive.
Can I
Commissioner
just
Jane?
ask my questions?
Sure, Commissioner Jane.
Okay. I had a few questions about this. I noticed that this is an expansion of an existing facility, and so I guess and the previous item was actually an expansion of a facility. I'm just trying to understand, we've had numerous discussions on this commission about onerous fees that we believe for live music and for other permits. What I noticed was that this is an expansion, so I want to know, do they have to pay the full fee if they want to do an expansion, or do they get a reduced fee because they haven't had any violations in the past or noise complaints? And then I noticed that the expansion is pretty much all private meeting rooms. And in discussion with staff, I hear that those are going to be used for weddings and things. So it's kind of surprising to me that there would not be live music or music there. And I understand that the applicant decided that they didn't want to have a permit for any live music. So I'm just trying to understand what the fees are for expansions and whether the applicant was offered this. We sort of have this bundle now. So if you get your alcohol permit, then the live music permit is kind of a very reduced fee. So I just wanted to understand that.
Okay. We used to have an amendment fee, and we don't have that currently. We have two types of use permits, a minor and a major use permit. In this case, they were charged for a minor use permit, so it was a full fee, but for a smaller project. So it's roughly 50% of the full use permit fee, but they were required to pay that because the staff time involved, the noticing, that kind of thing still require, and the preparation of the staff reports still requires that payment to cover the cost of working on this project. So they were included, they did pay that fee. And in terms of the live entertainment, I think initially they were asked about whether they wanted to include that, but Fleming's is kind of a, kind of higher end dining experience, and they don't have live music as a routine. Again, the private rooms that are part of the expansion they do have, as I mentioned in an email to Commissioner Jane, they are for booking corporate events, weddings, showers, that kind of things. And I believe if somebody wants to have some type of music, they could in that interior, but they have an AV system for, like, if there's a corporate event that's able to be booked. But that isn't overall part of their operations, and so that's why they were offered it, they chose not to move ahead with that inclusion of a live entertainment permit.
Okay, it just seemed to me if they were going to have like a wedding event or something and they had a small quartet or something there, then they would have to apply for a special use permit just for that event. Is that correct? Because they don't have by right any live music.
That's true. But however, when we update our code, we are including that incidental music basically within the walls that are not audible. It's not something outdoors as a potential, if it's incidental to the main use, would be an allowed use. So that's only a few months away. In the future, they wouldn't need a special permit or a use permit.
And in this case, the planners assigned to both of these use permits explicitly asked.
Okay.
And asked and said that we could bundle the live entertainment with the alcohol sales, and neither applicants were interested in that.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we're asking.
yes, we are for all the use permits related to alcohol sales.
Very good. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Do we
Move to
wanna
approve? Yeah.
Move to approve item 1B by Commissioner Jane, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. Go and cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. All right, let's talk, next is item 1C. Commissioner Jane?
Yes. So I had a question for the attorney. We had minutes that were produced from our questions that we had asked last time, and my question was about the limit on the size of an ADU. Before, we had said that it could be no more than 50% of the main house size. So I'm asking about a hypothetical. Let's say we have a property with 1,000 square foot main house. They could add, if they added a 2-bedroom, they could add an attached 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom, because it's over, I think they're guaranteed 800 square feet if it's 1-bedroom, but 1,000 square feet if it's a 2-bedroom.
No, actually, that's not what the statute says. There's 3 numbers in the statute.
Okay.
To make life more confusing. It's 1,000 square feet if it's 2 or more bedrooms. It's 850 square feet if
Yeah.
it's 0 to 1 bedrooms.
Yeah.
That's just the bright line rule that the city has to allow. Then, when you just look at development standards, if the application of the development standards won't allow at least 800 square feet, then you cannot apply your development standards. So
Yeah.
we can still have the 50% rule, and in your example, I think
Yeah.
it was 1,000 square foot house. So could we have a 50% rule? Sure, we could say you can't have more than 500 square feet, except that would violate the 800
Yes,
foot rule.
that's what I'm saying.
So we would have to allow up to 800 square feet
But
in
if
that
they-
circumstance. But if it was a 2,000 square foot home, we could cap it at
I
1,000.
understand, but my question is, if the main house is 1,000,
Yes.
and they want to build a 2-bedroom ADU, we have to allow at least 1,000 for the ADU.
No. Oh, 2-bedroom.
Yeah,
A
2-bedroom.
2-bedroom.
Yes,
Yes, you are correct.
yes. So
Sir.
we have to allow an attached ADU of at least 1,000, and then with the new law, they can add a second ADU that's detached that has to be at least 850 square feet.
No, there, I think I got you. You do have the right to put 2 ADUs on a lot,
Yeah.
but only if the attached ADU is a junior ADU. And a junior ADU cannot be more than 500 square feet.
I got it.
So in that case, they could only put 1 ADU if they've got a 1,000 square foot ADU attached.
So they could technically do, on a 1,000 square foot house, they could do a junior ADU of 500 square feet.
Yes.
And then a 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot detached ADU.
Yep.
Yes.
As long as it's a minimum of 16 feet tall and at least 4 feet setbacks. Is that correct? So they could be
Yes.
adding 1,500 square feet to a 1,000 square foot house by right, and no
welcome.
extra parking.
Welcome to the new California.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
You
Yes.
understand.
It will tie into the next conversation.
Okay, I move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jane. We have a second by Commissioner Biagini.
I think technically the action you're taking is note and file.
The recommendation
Oh,
was
it's
just
just
a note and file, since there's no
Okay.
action on
Oh,
this.
okay.
I'm flattered that you want to approve my report.
All right.
Which is great. Thank
So
you.
we don't take so it's just do we, all of our screens popped up with a vote, so do we know or? To vote to note and file? Okay. Go and cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. All right, next we will be moving to public presentations. Are there any members of the public that would like to briefly address the commission on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will now move to the public hearing. Public hearing item number 2 tonight is action on variance to the lot coverage and covered parking requirements associated with an addition at 655 Jefferson Street. And staff will
Chair-
start us off.
Chair Becker?
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself of this because I live within 1,000 feet of this property.
Okay, understandable. For the record, Commissioner Jane will be recusing himself because he lives within the boundaries of this property.
Should we move?
Staff, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Chair Becker, members of the commission, the applicant is requesting a variance for two reasons on this property. One is for the lot coverage to exceed the 40% limit, and then the other is to exceed the 499 square feet allowed for existing non-conforming uses that for when a building has an existing one-car garage and they do not plan on adding a second covered parking space, which is required under our current R16L zoning district for expansions up to the limits of the zoning code. So this is the location. It's in the old quad area. So this is a summary of the proposal. The lot is about 5,000 square feet. The existing is 1414. There's an existing 278 square foot one-car garage. The current lot coverage is 33%. The proposal is to add almost 700 square feet. That would take the existing building to 882 square feet. They are removing part of an unapproved addition, and this would result in a lot coverage of 43%. So this shows the site plan layout. The house has already been expanded once before, and so this would be a second addition. And under our code, basically, we did have a provision in the general plan that allowed existing non-conforming uses to expand up to that limit that we used to basically implement by policy that was created at the direction of City Council. And the housing element updated actually got dropped off. However, we still implement that policy of allowing expansions up to 3 bedrooms and no more than 500 square feet with a one-car garage. So that does allow some expansion. Again, this would be basically a second expansion, not under, I don't know if it's under the current ownership, but it has been expanded over time based upon our building permit records. And so their proposal is to move from a 3-bedroom, 3-bath building to 4-bedroom, 4-bath. So it is on a smaller lot, but is surrounded by other narrow lots. And so this is a fairly common lot dimension in the old quad, so it isn't unusual, and which is basically the intent and purpose of the variance ordinance, is that there's something unusual about the property itself, not necessarily the neighborhood. It relates to an individual request. So in terms of the density and everything, it's within the allowable density under the general plan. Again, it's zoned R16L, and for the expansion of this size does require a 2 covered parking space. A maximum lot coverage is 40%. The Historical Landmarks Commission did undertake a review of this property because under our historic preservation ordinance, any project approval that's discretionary in nature that is potentially able to impact a historic resource, it would be referred to the Historical and Landmarks Commission. So per that process, it was referred to them. Being in the old quad, there's lots of historic properties in nearby, and the commission found that there would be no adverse impact as a result of the proposal, and they found the property to be, and the design, consistent with the city's design guidelines for single-family homes. Our conclusion is the following. The property is located in a residential neighborhood that is comprised of single-story and one-story homes on narrow lots with attached one-car garages. So this is a common condition in the area. It's not unusual. It's not unique. So the other properties not seeking a variance would be subject to the same restrictions as this property. So the variance would basically allow them additional privilege not enjoyed by other similarly sized and available lots. That's the purpose of the zoning code under the variances, that there has to be an unusual condition relating to both the building and the land. Again, there's already been a previous addition, and so the cumulative expansions cannot exceed 500 square feet unless there is an upgrade in the available parking. Because there isn't any unusual conditions relating to the land or the building, as we previously mentioned, that staff is unable to make the findings to support the variance request. In terms of CEQA, there's a couple of actions. One is if the variance is denied, then the project is not subject to CEQA because of the denial action. If it is supported by the commission and approved, which it would be final at this level, then it would be classified under existing facilities and still be categorically exempt from CEQA since the addition is less than 50% of the existing floor area and does not exceed 2,500 square feet. So in your packet, we have prepared a resolution basically denying the request because we cannot make the requisite findings required for a variance approval. And with that, I'll conclude and answer any questions you have.
Okay, let's start with questions from Commissioner Cherukuru.
So with the new zoning ordinance proposals, how does a similar type of application with the revised changes impact?
Okay. Well, right now, we've studied a concept that we would allow a little bit more leniency for one-car garages to add up to 1,000 square feet. Again, that isn't codified, so the public will have a chance to weigh in on it as the Planning Commission and City Council. So that's a consideration, but right now, it's just a
Understood.
concept, but that's what probably we're going to move forward with as a proposal.
Okay.
I don't think floor area ratio has been discussed to be modified. However, definitely with narrower lots, there are provisions that we're proposing so that any sort of legal non-conforming setbacks would be able to be retained if you were expanding on a structure.
Okay. And if with the state law, if there was an ADU proposed to be added to this lot, how would the FAR be for that kind of a project?
Okay, so under the state law, the FAR and lot coverage and things, other development standards related to that prohibiting the implementation of the ADUs is not enforceable. So essentially it doesn't count towards lot coverage. That's a separate calculation that really isn't even relevant at this point.
Okay, thank you for those. I'm done.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly.
I think you answered part of my question, but, so if I understand this correct, they can still have an ADU on top of this?
Yes, they can have two, an attached and a detached.
If they meet the setback requirements?
Yes, 4 feet rear and 4 feet side.
Okay. Would it make a difference if they did it as a PUD versus a variance as far as what they could do with the property?
Yes, that would be able to be accomplished, but again, the purpose and intent of the PD ordinance says it's for extraordinary and exemplary design. It really isn't meant to address not being able to achieve a single, particularly development standard. So it really isn't the appropriate mechanism for something like this.
Okay. And then have they've been keeping the existing garage clear since they've expanded previously, correct, for parking?
I don't have any personal knowledge of that, so we can let the applicants respond to that.
Okay. And they're, on this street, is this one of the streets that are heavily impacted by students from the university parking in this area?
I don't think Jefferson is in direct line, but I think I think probably they can best address that. Because there's student housing populated throughout the old quad, that maybe there's the case, but my visits to that area have not seen a lot of on-street parking, at least during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ikezi.
Thank you, Chair. Whenever we see this type of project now, the subject of junior ADU comes up. My understanding of the difference between like an ADU and a non-ADU expansion is whether you have a kitchen or not. Would that be a correct understanding?
Yes, it has to, an ADU has to have both a full bathroom facility, 3 pieces, tub, shower, and sink, and it has to have a kitchen. And a junior ADU has to have an efficiency kitchen as defined by the International Building Code at minimum, and it can share bathroom facilities with the main unit.
And so what is the definition of a kitchen? Like, for example, the difference between...
It has to have a stove. You have to be able to cook food.
Oh,
so
you need to have a hood or
stove.
vent? A stove?
Well, a stove.
Oh, okay. No sink? You don't need a sink?
There is a definition, and I don't know, it's in the building code, actually, so I'd have to defer to that. But it does have to have, being able to clean up, but I believe a sink is part of that, at least in the IBC it is.
So that's in our ordinance or in the...
It's not in an ordinance, it just says you have to have a kitchen as defined by the IBC. And right now, we don't have an updated code, we're just basically deferring to the state legislation.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Biagini.
I just want to make sure I understand this right. Historical Landmark Commission dealt with this issue first, and their recommendation to the Planning Commission was to, I'll just bottom line it, deny the request, am I right?
No, what they said is they had to make two findings. So the land use issue is not really their prerogative, that's the Planning Commission. What they were charged to do under the Historic Preservation Ordinance was to make two findings. One is, did it comply with the city's design guidelines, meaning did they use the appropriate design techniques for adding on? And then so is there a consistency? And then second, is there any adverse impact associated with the improvements to any nearby historical resources? And they did not find anything in that regard.
Well, I understood that, so that's why I guess I'm confused.
So essentially, they're supporting the variance request because they concluded those other two findings. But
Is this an old report then? Because I'm looking at January 2nd, 2020 from HLC. And maybe I'm reading something wrong, but recommendation to the Planning Commission that there are no, or maybe
well,
that's
staff
staff.
report.
That's
that was
staff.
staff's recommendation.
That's staff to HLC.
Right.
My apologies. Okay. So they said, fine, approved. Yeah.
Well, they said basically that it complied with the design guidelines and it didn't have an adverse effect on the historic resource in the vicinity. Therefore, they were, it's in effect supportive of the proposal.
Okay.
Is that it, Commissioner Biagini? That's all? Okay. All right, now let's move on to the applicant's presentation. Good evening, Mr. Meyer.
Is this on? Okay, hello, commissioners and staff. Thank you for your time. This is a new thing in front of me here. So I've been here before, 4 variances for the historic district. What's unique about this is my neighbor, Wayne. I live right next door. I have a carriage house, a 2-story carriage house next door that I got by variance about 14 years ago. So what did they ask me to do? They asked me to fix their house, okay? Now, their house was extremely dysfunctional. If you look at the original floor plan, it has right now it has a 7-foot 8-inch wide bedroom in the front, okay? And they thought they bought it in 2012, and they thought they bought a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, okay? In 2015, they took one of the bedrooms out, which was also very narrow, and made a great room. And so our original proposal was to tear off the back bedroom and bath, which we thought it was legal, and we thought it was gonna count towards the square footage, so we wouldn't exceed the limit. And so staff did some research and said, we don't see a permit for this. They weren't the ones that built it, okay? They bought it as is. So now we have basically, a 3-bedroom house, if you wanna call a 7-foot 8 wide room a bedroom, okay? It's like a large closet, in my opinion. And it's in the living area, so it's not in an ideal space. So I was charged with the idea of, how do I fix this house? How do I connect it with the rear yard? And how do I preserve the historic streetscape? There are 4 Mills Act houses on this specific street. I want to talk a little bit about unusual conditions. A 40-foot wide lot. That's 33% of what the standard is in the R16L district. That is unusual, okay? Extremely unusual. I've worked on a lot of houses in the historic district alone, and I think maybe only one, I think it might be the one right behind this that I've worked on, okay? So that's unusual. Remember, this ordinance in 1969, it's now 50-plus years old, was done at a time when we tore downtown down, We put up garden apartments, and we're building tract ranch houses. That's what was going on at the time. I don't think there was a lot of consideration to the historical quad at the time because they were destroying it. What I'm trying to do is fix the old quad, okay? And I'm struggling with a 50-year-old ordinance, okay? Two-car garages were less common, especially on a narrow lot, okay? And Commissioner Romano at HLC brought up a good point. She says, actually, attached garages in the old quad are extremely unusual. And she thought it was worthy of keeping because of its uniqueness, okay? So that's an unusual condition that applies, I would say, in the old quad. If you're talking ranch houses, 60-foot wide lots, most of ranch houses in Santa Clara are two-car attached garage on the left or right side, right? That's a pretty standard ranch. Some of them are in the rear in some of the county land over on Bel Air and Cypress, okay? But some of those also were single cars in the front. So, so what did I do? We talked about second-story additions, first-story, basement additions. They want an age in place. I don't want to do a second-story addition on such a narrow house because it's going to be an eyesore, okay? They don't want to live in a basement. I have a basement, but I understand. They're going to get older. They have grandparents and everything. They want it nice and simple. So there's a site plan that I came up with as an alternative. If we had to build a two-car garage in the back, we'd have to have a driveway run down, now a driveway down the whole left side of the property. Okay, it's the last, if we can go to the last, is that me that I can do this? Okay. Maybe staff can help me on this. I want to find I did an alternative site plan, which showed a two-car scenario. And to answer your question, Commissioner Becker, or I forget who it was, their one-car garage is open. I mean, they're very clean. It's accessible, okay? There's another site plan at the very end of the drawings that shows, I can't see it in here.
I don't think it's on the slide. I think it's just in the plan set that's attached to the
Okay, it's in the plan
report.
set. And what it is, let me go back. I don't want to use up all my time trying to find this. But if you go and look at this, the only option is to rip the garage off. No, that's a red version, but put the garage in the back corner, it's straight in, which is going to take up a 20-foot, 1-foot wide garage, takes half the lot width, okay? And then the only addition I can do at that point, because the driveway is pretty much along the whole length, is a hokey little addition off the back, due to setback requirements and everything. There's a thing in the packet at the end. But thank you. But at any rate, so it is extremely unusual to have a 40-foot wide lot. And so we're trying to preserve streetscape, which is what the Historical Landmarks Commission was happy about. You look at this house from the front. Yes, it had been added on once before, but the idea is to preserve the streetscape, right? That's what we want to do in this historical quad. It's a cute house. It's simple. Let's see. The house was built in 1905, which predates the 1969 ordinance by 64 years. Think about that for a second. It's and the updating in the new ordinance is seriously considering reducing the requirement in a one-car garage for these types of additions. What do? You tear the one-car garage, you pay the expense to do that, and then you got to put a two-car garage in the back and make a long driveway. It's not a ranch-style house where the driveway's in the front. You're taking up the whole yard with a driveway and a garage. It is unusual. I don't know what else would be considered more unusual than this, okay? Maybe a smaller lot, okay? So the floor plan I came up with is very cohesive. It has 3 bedrooms and 2 baths in the back, a connection to the yard, and it works really well for a family. We're trying to adapt these houses so they're less prone to become rentals or where families, we want to keep families in these homes. They love our neighborhood. We want them there, and I think this is a very sensitive solution given the unusual conditions. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to have Wayne come up. He's the homeowner, and he can add a little context for you.
Hello, I'm Wayne Machado, live at 655 Jefferson, and I just had a few things to say. My wife and I moved there in 2012, like Rob said. We now have a 3-year-old, and we, like Rob said, we absolutely love the old quad, love Santa Clara. Can see us, that's like our forever house. But I mean, we have to go through the garage to get to the backyard. It's kind of awkward. We don't have really a real laundry room. And obviously we asked Rob to help us out with the design that kind of worked for us. And it just makes sense, like a house, a functional house should. With having one kid, maybe a second, maybe, it would be just perfect. The front bedroom is not really a bedroom. It's like a kid's playroom currently. It's really small. But we have a lot of family comes over that stays. We have family that lives in the city and some that live in Santa Cruz area. So we're like the middle spot for family and whatnot. So, and I would just, like I said, we don't really want to move, and we want to do everything we can to stay here. And we feel like Rob's got a plan that for us that that would be our forever spot. So hopefully you guys will consider approving this. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one more thing. So when we went through the process initially, we thought we were going to get the extra square footage as a credit for that rear bed and bath. So we originally proposed this as a modification because we weren't thinking we were adding more than 500 square feet. And staff said, well, if you open up that front room, you can consider it a den. So we would have been staying with 3-bedroom, because they really need 3 normal bedrooms. And then we thought we were good. We actually, once we were dealing with the variance, I think we were at like 41% originally with the design that worked just right. We said, well, we might as well make it a little bit bigger to make this work. So that's where we're at 43.2 right now. That could have been granted at a modification level. It's just that we have this, the additional square footage above and beyond. So it's unusual. I hope you think so. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Let's start off with questions for the applicant. We'll be starting with Commissioner Kizzy. Were you first, or was that from the last time? It's okay. Commissioner Cherukuru then.
I do have a question. Sure. So the total addition to the actual square footage of the house seems 435 square feet.
There's a data error on the data sheet. It actually
Yes.
shows the total of, again, it's ironic, but it's actually less than I think it says 13 something on the data sheet.
1354 is the existing.
They were supposed to pull out the illegal back room on that.
Oh,
so that's
okay.
that's the tricky part. Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't factor that in. So good catch. Yeah, I caught it too, but I forgot to tell you about it.
Okay, so thanks for clarifying. That's where my question was.
Sure.
And also, because I went with the 500, if they were considering today's JDU, we just could clarify that up to 500 square feet, 2-bedroom, no need to add a kitchen. You
Yeah.
get 2 bedrooms like a gift.
We talked about, I said, you could plan an ADU on the back of this house with the smallest kitchen you can imagine.
You don't need a kitchen for
No,
a JDU.
Right.
You
Junior,
do
it
need a
does.
kitchen.
It just
You
doesn't
have
need
to
a
have a
bathroom.
kitchen.
It can share a bathroom with the house. The junior can, yeah.
Well, technically, the CBC defines a kitchen with just equivalent to a wet bar.
Totally. We talked about it, but they're just like, we just want to go for this. And I told them,
Okay.
I mean, honestly, we talked about the ordinance update. I've got so many clients that just want to get rolling.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold my breath on the ordinance update, with all due respect to everybody, okay? I'll stay here if there's any other questions.
No, I wanted to clarify. So is there any future intent to expanding anything beyond what this addition currently proposes? I mean, the
No,
lot is pretty
no.
constrained, so I can't fathom anything.
No,
Because that would be a red flag.
I know. I originally tried to say, well, do you need extra space? Can we just do a small ADU in the back?
Yeah.
No. We just want a house to enjoy with our family. And they entertain a lot. They have a very big family. So that yard, if you look at the site plan at the very end in the packet, is an abomination of what we would have to do with a 2-car garage. And we wouldn't even get a normal addition. It just keeps, I'm already not happy as an architect by extending beyond and beyond, but I don't have any other solutions other than going down or going up, and I'm not going to go there.
So the total square footage of this new proposal is 1789?
Is that, I think the total's accurate. Whatever it says on my cover sheet, on the drawings, I don't have it off the top of my, well, here it is, duh. Sorry. It's a brave new world with these, although I don't see, it's not in the.
I don't see it on your cover sheet,
I
per
think is
se.
2160.
Yeah, 2160.
Is that with the garage?
That's everything.
Correct.
Yeah,
The
that's with
house lot
garage.
coverage.
So the data sheet is not, okay, so what is the total square footage?
17 something, I think, for the house, and then the garage is like two or three something
280?
It's 2,160 square feet altogether.
total, whole structure.
Got it, 2,160 gross floor area. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
all right, thank you for that.
thank you. Any other?
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Kelly?
You're one of the next-door neighbors, correct?
Yeah, I live,
Oh, okay. So-
Right,
So
yeah.
have they shown the plans to the neighbor on the opposite side?
yes, at HLC, we gave everybody in our block, and we even had a signed, signed thing that everybody was in support of it.
Okay.
Two Mills Acts border it, two-story Mills Acts, although my carriage house, which is modern, is between my two-story historic house. If you're looking at this property, my house is on the corner to the left with the carriage house in between. And then there's a two-story to the right of it. Yeah.
So the garage will be clear for parking, correct?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And then any remaining cars will park
On the-
basically back to back?
Well, they have a very long driveway there. I just don't
That's-
want to make the driveway another, what, 80, what do we got here?
3-car lengths?
Well, yeah, you got about 3 car lengths in front of the driveway, but if you imagine having to put the 2-car garage in the back, I have the whole left side of the house to be a driveway. Just consider that for a second, yeah.
Okay, and
But you can queue, how many cars can you queue, Dwayne, in that driveway alone? 3, I think.
3.
Yeah.
We have 3 cars and they all fit in the driveway, which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
and
looking at
and
the
that's how
aerial.
you have been doing it to date? Basically just parking back to back?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
So that's the way you've been basically dealing with having to park back to back? So if you want to get one car out, you have to back out the other?
Correct.
Okay.
I usually park in front of the house because I leave before my wife. And she gets home after. So our spare car is always in the driveway. My wife parks behind that, and then I park on the street. But there's times where we'll all 3 park in the driveway.
Okay, all right, and as you are well aware, we get a lot of complaints from people parking in the old quad because
Yeah.
parking is at premium. Your street has not been adversely impacted because of the university parking?
Yep. No, and that's my street too. So yeah, I mean, I'm right at the corner. I'm 659 Jefferson and 1490 Santa Clara. And the beauty of that, my corner lot, is that there's a lot of frontage on that. A corner lot gives you a lot of frontage. His doesn't have a lot of frontage, let's be real. It fits 1 car. It's only 40 feet wide and the driveway is, the majority of that. But no, I mean, we all seem to, we have an apartment building on Santa Clara Street and they park in front of my house, but a couple people said, I try not to park in front of your house. I said, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about you parking in front of my house. I'm trying to all get along here, right? So
But you've got a whole corner.
we don't, yeah, so that's a long-winded, sorry for the long-winded answer. So it's my street as well, so, yeah.
Okay, all right, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Biagini.
I think actually you kind of answered the question. I'm looking at a Google Earth aerial view of it, and I have to say, I'm kind of surprised. I didn't think there were so many that narrow. But yeah, it looks to me, is that your white car parked in front?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see 2 cars in the current driveway. A third one would have fit in the middle, but yeah, I can also see that if you had to go all the way to the backyard, you'd probably line up 5 cars. But and I guess the reason I bring that up is because I have the same concern about let's not start backing up street parking, but it looks like you've got that resolved with your take turns who has to move their car issue. Yeah, and then you got the question answered about the neighbors, so.
Let me talk a little about lot width, because you mentioned it. There's a lot of, I did a survey many years ago for another project about what lot widths there are. There are a lot of 50 and 60-foot wide lots in the Oak Quad, a lot of 50.
Okay.
I would say there's not a lot of 40s, okay? Usually the 40s, my house owned the whole half block, not me.
Yeah, I can see it, nice.
At one point it did, and then they subdivided over time, okay? We shared a driveway originally, so his property was part of, not my property, the rough estate or property. And at some point, they carved it off. But again, you got to remember, this is pre-ordinance. This is pre-1969 ordinance. The only other ordinance before that was, I think, 1929. It's the first ordinance in the city.
Yeah,
So-
I know that it's not unusual to have narrow lots in the old
Sure.
quad.
But
You know,
in
I'm
this-
looking at the house on the corner thinking, was that used to be 2 lots back in the day?
Well, that
But
was my
anyway.
house, and that used to own a whole half block.
Well,
Okay.
oh, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
not mine.
but I mean, I think, I do, well, first off, narrow lots, I don't think are particularly usual. And then
Right.
when you talk about the realm of narrow lots, I was surprised it was that narrow, so.
Also, we have to look at the whole district in context.
Right.
We're weighing in on this as an unusual condition, not just for the Oak Quad, but it is typical, more typical in the Oak Quad, but it's for the whole district, which means R16L. That's what we're looking at. Is this unusual for the R16L district? I would argue yes, because the district calls out, how many houses were built post-1969 in the city? Probably lots. So let's compare those,
Not
which had
there.
to follow the 60 unless they were PDs. So you got to factor that in. It's unusual. Sorry for jumping on that.
That's all right. God, I just lost what my other thought
Sorry.
was, but I think it's, oh, I know what it was. And then I just wanted to clarify again that, I don't know how to manipulate this so I can see the front of the house, but there was a picture earlier.
Oh, I'll get it
It's
for you.
not, so by my looking at that, it seems to me, just tell me if I'm wrong, that it's not going to look different.
It's not. You won't see
Not
it.
if you're walking down
You
the
won't
street
see
and
it.
looking,
That's the thing I was happy most about.
unless you're
I
peeking
mean-
over the back fence, but.
And you can see, he could probably queue 2 more cars in there, to be honest. I mean, it's pretty close. My
Yeah.
guest house is to the left. That's my carriage house that I got a variance for.
On the left? Okay.
2014, or no, 2006, sorry, 14 years ago.
No, but I would commend the applicant for bringing the neighborhood with you in front of the HLC. I think that's important. So that's it.
Commissioner Kelly?
Nope.
No? Okay. Commissioner Ikezi?
So the parking is maybe good right now, but it's not gonna be good forever because, I mean, everywhere I see more and more cars. So have you ever thought about maybe expanding the driveway a little bit so that you can accommodate 2 lanes of cars?
Oh, the width?
Yeah.
That, you could answer that one. Yeah. The width of the driveway. just-
I don't know if the width would be possible. I don't know what the distance from the fence to the side of the house is.
It's not much.
I'm not, I mean, it would be really tight. I wouldn't be opposed to trying to widen the driveway there. I don't think we can't really move the house, so
Well,
I'm fine with trying,
use
but
part of the front yard.
yeah, I don't know about that. But I could tell you that we are not like car people. So right now we have 4 spots with our garage and the 3 cars in the driveway. We are not, I was talking about getting a new car, but my wife's like, you got to get rid of your truck, my truck then. So we have a 3-year-old now. I mean, in 13 years, maybe, if he's lucky, maybe he'll have another car. But but we still have 4 spots currently.
And if you compare it to my house next door, I have 2 spots in the front and 2 in the garage. So that's 4 spots on a 3,300 square foot house with a 640 square foot guest house. That's 4,000 square feet. So let's, talking about parking, there's plenty of parking on the street, and I think we're gonna get away from cars, hopefully. Hopefully mass transit is the thing, or Uber or whatever, but
Thank you.
Okay. No more questions from commission? Seeing none, let's,
public hearing?
no, we're
We haven't
going to the
opened
public
the
hearing.
public hearing yet. We need to get
So let's go to the public
comment.
hearing. Anybody like to speak, please line up. Hello, Mr. Thompson. Bringing him in young,
Like
huh?
cheers, everyone knows your name. I love it. Unfortunately, this kind of gives me flashbacks of my variance request 2 years ago for my ADU. I live on Lexington Street, right around the corner. I faced a similar condition with a substandard narrow lot. Wayne is actually even worse. I have 50 feet. He has 40. It is a challenge. I mean, from construction, construction side, even if you widen the driveway, you can't get 2 cars in there. So there's really no advantage there. If you extend the driveway all the way to the back, you still have to shuffle cars. I mean, my driveway goes all the way to the back fence, and I have 2 cars in there because it splits only at the very end. So it doesn't really help with parking. I can tell you I walk my daughter and son, and used to walk my dog down the street all the time to go to the cemetery. I've never seen a parking problem. I have seen the tenant actually pile up all 3 cars in the driveway on multiple occasions. So I think they are very respectful and cautious of the neighborhood. I think the biggest thing here is that the streetscape is going to stay the same. I mean, if they blew up, I think it would look out of context and it would look heavy. And probably like the house was going to fall over. If they moved the garage forward and tried to do a tandem, which we've seen in a lot of mixed-use developments, you still face the same problem of getting one in, one out, so I don't see that. I think the comment from the HLC having an attached garage in the old quad is extremely rare. I never even thought about it. Mine's detached. I don't know many that are, if any others, that are actually attached as an original build. I think it's unfortunate that the city wasn't able to find permits for the square footage that was there. I actually walked the house before they bought it, because when you're in the old quad, you like to walk everybody's house, because it gives you ideas. And it's unfortunate, but I think it probably predates records, and I know that there's a lot of stuff in the old quad that was built before the ordinances and before there were records, and I don't think it should count against them. I really do think that they are trying to make this a single-family R16 residence, and keeping the historical nature of the neighborhood and that fabric, and I think it's really important. And I hope you support this variance, and because we were tired of asking for PDs, planned developments, and asked people in the old quad to start actually going for the variance, the specific reasons and hardships that they faced. And I hope that staff also, in their ordinance update, we really, really, really need to segregate out the old quad and have some rules that pertain to us, because I think it's challenging for all of us to adapt our homes into the current style of living under the blanket of rules and ordinances that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, and thank you for bringing the next generation. He's going to take after you.
You're being good.
Batman. All right, anybody else from the public? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
But first,
right.
the applicant has a chance to
Oh,
rebut, if
my
he'd
bad.
like. Totally optional.
They did. Okay,
As
so
you
we have
were.
a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Chair Crew. Who seconded it?
I did.
Commissioner Kelly. Go ahead and cast your votes. And that passes unanimously, 6-0. All right, let's start with some questions and comments. We have Commissioner Ikezi first. No? Yes?
Well, I forgot to turn mine off, but anyway, I think this is a great project. I appreciate that the owner wants to invest in this property. It's a great way to enhance what's already there in the old quad, so I support this project, the variance approval.
Okay, Commissioner Chair Crew.
I've said this before, if our ordinance were in already, we wouldn't be asking for the variance. But I do appreciate the sensitivity with which this project has been handled, and it's setting right a lot of wrongs. So I appreciate, and it doesn't densify more, and knowing that the state law will preclude any future ability for us to say, can there be parking? Do we need more restrooms? I think this is a great project, so thank you for doing the right thing.
Okay, Commissioner Biagini.
I would like to echo what both Commissioner Ikezi and Commissioner Chair Cruz said. Of particular importance to me is the fact that this was done in a thoughtful way that doesn't change the character of the house, doesn't create the parking problems that we come across a lot, and that the neighbors are in approval. I think you got some pretty savvy neighbors like Mr. Thompson and Batman, that do have a concern about how things look moving into the future. With that, I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to approve the variance to allow the addition with a 43.2% lot coverage and a one-car covered parking space.
Okay, I'll add some comments first before we move forward. Seems like we update our ordinance at once every 50 years. It's pretty much time it's due, and I hope that this starts a precedence for this neighborhood. Mr. Meyer, I see your dedication for this neighborhood and, you know, the historical nature of this neighborhood. We appreciate this tender, loving care that you put into this neighborhood, especially after they bulldozed our downtown and turned towards suburbia. Your service as a commissioner, it's been highly recognized, and we all look up to you for a lot of this information, and we respect you here. And I believe, Wayne, I believe that you're in really good hands with this, with Rob. This is going to really, I think, spice up that neighborhood, and moving forward, I think it's going to make this neighborhood even better. I see what you've done great with your own place. I think it's a cute little house that you got going on here, and I'm glad to see you being a part of Santa Clara. So, and also, thank you, Rob, for being harmonious in the neighborhood and being accepting with everybody and not being a parking Nazi. Thank you. We have a.
And Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to insert myself into the process. Should the commission vote to approve this variance tonight, there are legally required findings that have to be made. So there are two ways we can do this. One, we could make the findings in a reso and bring that back for your approval at the next meeting. Or two, you can tell me what findings you want to make, and I took some notes on suggestions, and we'll simply put them into the minutes. So
I can take it.
if you'd like to make them tonight, I can tell you what findings need to be made.
Let's start with Commissioner Chair Crew, who made the motion, I believe.
Yeah,
It was Commissioner Biagini,
Oh, it's Virginie? Well,
either way.
who wants to go?
the maker of the motion.
Make it tonight.
Commissioner Chair Crew.
So I just wanted to consider the unusual circumstances that 40 feet lot width in this area can be considered unusual, and to also accommodate the correction to a pre-built, I don't want to use an illegal construction, but you get the whiff to correct, obtain building permits. So that would be one finding that I would say, to correct it and build it in the right way. But yeah, unusual circumstances do prevail. That would be my biggest.
Can we add additional ones?
Of course, and just to help guide the discussion, let me tell you the 5 findings you have to make. One, that this is categorically exempt because it's a small expansion. 2, there are unusual conditions applying to the land or building, and Commissioner Cherikou just mentioned the 40-foot wide lot. We also heard testimony about the extremely narrow bedroom at only 7 feet 8 inches, and that the attached garage is actually extremely unusual for the old quad. 3, it's necessary to the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights of the applicant. Here, the narrow lot would make it infeasible to both install a driveway and expand the house. 4, that it shall not adversely affect the health, safety, comfort, or welfare of the neighbors. And you heard testimony that the addition will not change the visible appearance of the home from the street and is consistent with the existing architectural style. The scale and massing of the proposed expansion would be compatible with the neighborhood in the opinion of the neighboring residents. And in the opinion of the HLC, the expansion would not adversely affect the character of nearby historic properties. And then 5, this variance would be in keeping with the purpose of the zoning ordinance. Chapter 18.108 of the zoning ordinance recognizes the practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships such as those described by the applicant justify the granting of a variance. So that's a very long-winded 5 points that have to be made. If you have any way of supplementing those, or you want to just go with
Okay.
those.
So you already put down one, which was number 2, usual conditions, unusual conditions. So I would like to say, well, let's go to somebody else first before I go.
I like to make a friendly amendment to the motion to add the findings with the verbiage that our attorney suggested.
All 5, basically.
Absolutely. Thank you. Beat me to it.
All of the above findings apply.
I'm good with that.
I agree.
Second?
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Biagini, seconded by Commissioner Cherikou. Go ahead and cast your votes. And that passes 5-0.
Lance voted, I don't know why Granite can show that way, it will be corrected.
So that passes 6-0. And a recusal by Commissioner Jane. Thank you. Congratulations.
Good luck with your project.
Thanks, Batman.
And just to mention that that action is final by the Planning Commission unless there's an appeal within 7 days.
Excellent. Okay, moving forward. We will now go on to reports of commission, board, and liaison and committee. Number 1, announcements and other items. My one announcement is everybody get out and vote on Tuesday. That's it. Anybody else? Commissioner Ikezi?
I have a couple of requests about, with the packets that we're going to get. I noticed that in today's, the item that we discussed just now, all the staff reports are usually titled agenda report, but this one said something else. Development plans? No. What was it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Yeah, the attachments for the exhibits for the actual drawings of the building are called development plans, and that's a very standard verbiage that we use.
Okay, so can we stick to one type of title so that it'll be easier for us to just go through the reports and find the relative
That's usually
documents?
what we call them. That's the standard language we've used.
It says report to planning commission. Oh, okay. Oh, it does say agenda report at the top. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm confused. But my other request is from last week's meeting. We had a massive package, and I had a really hard time finding the documents that were mentioned in the appendix. So if you could at least like mention the page number in the document so that we can find them, because I understand DAP2 is coming really soon. It will really make our lives easier because, we're asked to review this stuff really fast. So thank you.
Okay.
Just to clarify, you mean the page number of the particular attachment, correct?
Yeah, because at the end of the staff report, there's like a list of all the attachments, and when you scan some of the documents were scanned, so you couldn't do text search. So then you have to, scan through hundreds of pages to find the document, and it's very time consuming. Thank you.
I had a hard time finding staff report in one of the 1,000-page documents I got the other day. So that type of thing, I think, would be really helpful.
Vice Chair Slam?
Yeah, I was going to echo a recommendation that please find time to watch the town hall meeting that was held on Monday and then the Tuesday city council meeting, which was exceptionally, not heated is the wrong word, I would say
Spicy.
energetic in conversation. So it would be well worth everyone's time to try and at least watch the appropriate sections on that. And I guess we're waiting to talk about architecture committee. Are we going to do that? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other announcements from any commissioners?
Just echoing Commissioner Selene's comment, I just wanted to, I don't know if it's even public record statement, but I'd want our jurisdiction and our city to be looked at in a favorable way. I just know there's a lot of talk outside our city about us, and it's not in the favorable light. We just don't look so great anymore. So I just want us to reconcile, say some things that are sounding unison. We just appear so bad. I'm just saying it because I hear it.
Thank you, Commissioner Chiricuru. And I agree with you, too. Any other commissioners like to chime in on announcements? Okay, we will now move on to item 2, which is Architectural Committee. Commissioner Slame, Vice Chair Slame.
I think I've lost track of where we're at, and I don't know if Commissioner Biagini has also. We had a pending decision to be made for the parking structure on Coleman, and all I have seen is some renderings and suggested art, but I haven't seen any kind of proposal that we were prepared to vote on. So can staff comment as to where that is in the process?
Sure. So one thing is, I did send Commissioner Biagini, I thought I mentioned in the email that because both of you would constitute a quorum, we cannot have you either participate through an email chain or in person. So either one of you could attend those working sessions, but not both of you. Otherwise, we'd have to notice it. But the action at the AC meeting on the conclusion of the garage discussion at the Coleman Highline project was that if there is satisfactory resolution from all parties, that it would be deemed approved. And if not, then it would be referred to this body for continued discussion. So, and we did leave open, though, that if there was a necessity to return to an AC for final conclusion, that we would notice that special meeting. So Commissioner Biagini attended today. I could only stay for a few minutes of that, so I don't know if there was further progress. It sounded like there was some progress being made.
Good, then I'll let her report.
Commissioner Biagini.
I don't know how much I can. I don't want to be in violation of the Brown Act here. I mean, I don't know.
Just reporting back is not, just
Well,
what
I
occurred
think
today.
it's safe to say that the parties, in my opinion, made significant progress today, and that I don't have a crystal ball, but I think it's a safe bet that they will reach a mutually agreeable conclusion, in which case, as you stated, Gloria, it was my understanding as well, it doesn't come back to architectural review if the two parties come to a mutual agreement, all other things being proper. It would then move on to,
That's the final
that would be
approval.
final, yeah. And there was significant progress. So
Thank you.
everybody was smiling.
Thank you, Commissioner Biagini and Vice Chair Slam. Next, we will move on to item 3, Commissioner Travel and Training Reports and the request to attend trainings. Any commissioners have any reports to make? Seeing none.
Staff would just like to add, I have a phone call at 4 p.m. on Friday with the Urban Land Institute to spec out and price out a cost of development training for the Planning Commission. They've done really good trainings in the past. They seem really interested in doing it. So there is obviously a process in working with their organization and with us. So on Friday, I should be able to get a sense of what steps they need and what their timeline is, and then what our timeline is to enter into an agreement with them in order to hopefully bring forward that training.
Excellent. Commissioner Jane?
Yeah, it seems to me that it was pretty clear that today was going to be a very light agenda, and I had submitted a number of speaker recommendations, and so I'm wondering where we are with those free speakers that we could potentially invite.
So understanding the actual agenda did not give us very much time. I did reach out to all staff for opportunities to update on specific plans, policies. I didn't have much lead time to reach out to individual speakers that you had listed. You know, in the future, I could just kind of keep them on retainer, perhaps. I mean, I do realize many of them, you know, just if I was asked similarly, I may not be able to just within a week or 2 weeks' notice, be able to deliver on that. But I'll be mindful of that because, quite frankly, given the short turnaround, it wasn't something I even thought of. So I'll keep that in mind. I looked to our staff to provide an opportunity for training for today, a study session for today, knowing it was light, you know, wanted to use the time wisely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cherukuru?
I don't know, the AICP folks will probably keep an eye out. So there is the Ohio's webinars that we use for credits. On March 13th is the State and Local Planning for Energy, exploring the new clean energy. Their series are great, but in light of our recent quote, I don't know if it's set yet, about Bloom Energy and the litigation on clean energy and our CEQA versus what the judge felt. I think it's a good indicator of how, so anything related to what clean energy means, what is the real CEQA implication of it, because I know I read through the litigation and it was pretty bifurcated in how we quantify our energy system. So that would be a good topic.
Thank you, Commissioner Chiricuru. Any other commissioners? Seeing none, we will move to Director of Community Development and Development Reports. Item 1, Planning Commission budget updates.
Yes, so you all have your summary there prepared by Elizabeth, so thank you, Elizabeth, for putting this together. And your current balance is $18,730. We still have some other receipts, I believe, waiting to be submitted, but that's approximately, this is pretty close to what your balance is.
Okay. I would like to add some comments onto the budget. There was recently, just right now, don't know what you call that, a clipboard going around with a list of snacks that you would like to put on there. Please put those snacks on there. We have the budget for it because it seems like we have little warnings everywhere we go that tell us not to eat this, not to touch this, not to drink this. And especially when you have news reports showing how lavish trips are in Paris, makes us feel really kind of crappy when we donate our time to this city and dedicate our time. So go ahead, put whatever you want on that list and live it up. I'd even say put a pizza maker in our fridge on there, but I think I'm asking a little too much. Any other commissioners chiming in on that?
Can we get the Silicon Valley Business Journal credentials again? Yeah, mine didn't work, so thank you.
Excellent. Any other commissioners? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to upcoming agenda items.
Rena, do you have?
So I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we will, in March, we have a study session for VMT, as well as, I think in the April timeframe, we have a office project development, and then in May, thank you for responding to our request for a date for a special meeting to bring forward the VMT policy, the actual adoption of the policy. We may have to come back to you with an alternative date to consider. There are some scheduling constraints we have, so look out for an email on that. And that's all I have.
Can I?
Sure, Commissioner Dane.
Last night, the city council adopted a Vision Zero policy. And I was hoping that maybe someone could come talk to us about what a Vision Zero policy is and how that impacts our decisions. The second is that I believe on Monday we had a new sustainability manager supposed to start. And I have not heard any announcements of who that is and whether it might be possible to have that person come and talk about, I believe, her vision. So.
Yeah, so the sustainability manager who started on Monday, her name is Michelle Templeton. She previously was with the city of Watsonville, where she was the assistant public works director, and she had sustainability as part of her portfolio in that role. And I know she's getting up and running. She still is getting emails set up and that sort of thing. So I'll certainly talk to her. Staff is meeting with her to get her up to speed on the climate action plan. And she's, I'm sure, incredibly interested in talking to all of us. We may give her some time, but I'll certainly convey to her the interest of you, as well as maybe the Planning Commission, to have her speak to the commission about sort of the role as well as sustainability and the framework and work that's underway.
Thank you.
And I just want to ask if the commissioners are aware that there's a sustainability speaker series that's been going on for a little while. And so there's a series of topics that are being discussed. If you don't have that information, we could forward you a link to the series of those talks. And it's here at the city.
I didn't get anything, but I was one of the first speakers in that series. So I don't know what.
And
No.
It's There are a
run by
series of speakers, and so we can get you plugged in so you're notified about all of them. I happen to
Run by
there
Lena?
it's
Is that the one run by Lena? Prada Baez? Prada Baez?
maybe.
Under Dave Staub's office?
Yeah, but I think it's more than just zero waste. I think it's
Yeah, no,
broader.
I
Yes.
gave a talk on
Yeah.
climate change.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jane. Commissioner, Vice Chair Slam?
Automatic microphones. I have one more request, more for our Assistant City Attorney, is that after the Tuesday votes and other changes that have been going on in Sacramento, could you find it in your schedule to update us on any new changes to some of the state laws or any of the things that affect us, like you did with AB 35 and all the other really informative impacts on our decision process? If there's new things, just a simple update, not a full session necessarily, but any kind of simple update you could provide would save a lot of Google time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not really sure of the scope. You mean in, like, what, the last year, the last
Yes,
few months?
within the last actually few months, because you did an excellent presentation in January.
Thank you.
But
Could I ask for a slight reprieve,
oh,
maybe?
yeah, no,
like,
not certainly not
maybe we could
next
do in the
session, but in the future,
spring?
like in June or
I've
something.
got a zoning ordinance to work on.
Yeah,
Some
in
people have
June.
been asking about it, I don't know. But sure, at some point, how about a general presentation about?
Even if it's every
relevant-
6 months, because I think that's just enough to keep everybody reviewed and up to speed. Anytime we're going to get a new member, it's going to make a big difference to have people feeling up to speed on what's going on and what the changes are at the state level and things that will impact our decisions, because I'm getting caught by surprise on a few things that I've been Googling, and I just don't want to be caught by surprise.
Yeah, I would just ask that if you hear about specific bills that are of interest, it would help guide me as to what to say if you email me the things you're particularly interested in.
Okay, I can do that. I have to know they
Oh,
exist.
yeah, I heard that they're trying to do away with the fees. That's the latest I heard, so,
On housing?
development fees.
On development, the legislature is?
Because they're impact fees.
Oh, impact fees, yeah.
Yeah, that's the classic problem. You have to know what's coming in order to ask for information about it. So it's more of a general open topic that if you see something that you think is going to impact us,
Yeah,
love
I
to hear
mean,
about
the
it.
one caveat is that I'm a little hesitant to report on bills that haven't been enacted.
Right.
Because it's, I could spend a lot of time figuring out exactly what it is, and then it doesn't pass or it gets vetoed, and
Forget I mentioned it, please.
Okay. Moving on, we will go now to item 3, City Council actions.
Oh, and before, I realize there is a big item that I forgot to mention with upcoming agenda items, which is the related Santa Clara DAP 2. We don't have a specific date on that, but that's probably because of timeline requests, probably another request for a special meeting. We'll do whatever we can to keep it within the scheduled meeting, but watch out for that as well.
Cool. Yeah. City Council actions, anything else?
Yes, there were two items that occurred since your last meeting, and before the MCP discussion and DAP for Kylie, I'm sorry, for related Santa Clara. On the 2nd of February, the final reading of the AC process adoption took place, but there were two things that were updated that occurred at council that we had to basically update that ordinance. And one was that all second-story additions will be going to a public hearing process. That was originally not included in the draft ordinance. If it, basically, we only use the 5 bedrooms or 5 bathrooms and the 2 exterior openings to bedrooms were the only, so it didn't matter if they were in 1-story or second story, but a resident brought that up, and then the council felt that was important to include second stories for the potential that it could impact adjacent neighbors. So that's now included as a discretionary process. And also, if there are full demolitions, of a single-family dwelling, that would also go to public hearing for the new construction, even if it's a one-story building. On the January 31st, Kylie actually presented a letter of comment to the council that basically asked about the concern related to the denial of the DA extension. And they're asking for feedback and a request for a study session, but I don't know what the outcome of that is. I'm not sure if Rena is familiar with what the council's response to that was.
I do not have that.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay, is that it? Okay, and before we adjourn our meeting.
Just a quick question. So we may be doing, having more hearings about the DA extension, not what they really want to do, but
no, the
just the DA
council
extension?
basically denied the extension,
Right,
so they're
right.
going to allow it to run out, at least, but the letter from Kylie was basically, they want to open negotiations with the city, and they'd like more feedback, so they're requesting a study session to evaluate before it actually truly expires, which is, I believe, is in May. I think they're attempting to have that discussion and get more direction, and then feedback on the new proposal for the mixed-use development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dan?
I believe last night, as I mentioned earlier, they adopted the pedestrian plan, which has something like 170 improvements that are going to cost something like $170 million, but there's no real figure, they haven't figured out how to pay for it. So do you have any insight into that? How they're going to pick which projects to do, or no?
No.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
That'll be
So-
step 2.
So before we adjourn our meeting, actually in record time, so pinch me if I'm alive, I want to adjourn our meeting in memory of Isaiah Pacheco. Young Isaiah was struck and killed by a car while crossing Lafayette Street at Agnews Road on Sunday night. The driver cooperated with Santa Clara PD. Isaiah had attended Don Calhoun School here in Santa Clara, and he was also a freshman at Santa Clara High School. There's a candlelight vigil held the other night with the site of the incident, and I just have to say our hearts go out to you, to your family. It's a very sad loss, and if we could have a moment of silence in his memory. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So
Until
moved.
October 9th? All right.
Second?
Motion to adjourn the meeting by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Cherikou.
Yeah, just a voice vote. Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.